If you're wondering why you can't get a job in 2025, don't worry, you're not alone. Experts have been saying this is the worst job market since the 2008 recession. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what has gone wrong, both in the education system and in the job market, that has led to many Gen Z and some millennials as well struggling to find a job. Firstly, we're going to talk about the college degree scam. Now, this has been going on for many years, but has particularly become apparent in the last few years. We have been brainwashed into believing that we need a degree just to be considered for an interview, and that a degree is essential if we want a high-paying job. And while that may have been true 40 or 50 years ago, sadly it's no longer the case today. The current reality is that universities are money-making schemes. Anyone and everyone can get a degree. As long as you can pay the fees, you can go to university. And that was proven by the Russell Group University scandal that came out last year, revealing that many Russell Group universities were actually choosing international students with lower grades over home students, so students from the UK with A stars and A's who had worked really hard. And they were choosing these international students because their fees are double. On the University of Cambridge website, you can find the 2025 international fees for medicine are £70,000 a year. So, of course, it's more lucrative for these Russell Group universities to let in international students that are bringing them in well over triple the amount of money than a home student, for example. Also, there are lots of degrees on offer, many of which don't lead to any clear job prospects and don't provide you with any employable knowledge or skills. These university courses are simply there for students to take them and make universities money. And the result of all of this is that since anyone can go to university, degrees have really lost their value. 40 years ago, only the brightest went to university, and it really did set you apart when you were applying for jobs and trying to get an interview. However, today, employers are no longer impressed if you have a degree because nearly everyone has one. Therefore, unfortunately, graduates end up going to university, coming out with a virtually worthless piece of paper, a massive debt, and minimum wage job prospects or unemployment. So what are the real key issues with degrees? Well, although sitting in a classroom for 3 to 4 years will equip you with lots of knowledge, it doesn't actually provide you with the real-world business skills that employers are looking for today. Therefore, it's been really hard for graduates to find a job in recent years due to their lack of work experience. Yet, ironically, society told us that we need to go to university in order to get a good paying job. Another reason for high unemployment rates amongst graduates in recent years is due to what is known as the entry-level paradox. Entry-level jobs used to mean just that. You would come out of university with no experience and you would go into a company and start gaining experience. However, employers are now requiring 3 to 5 years experience for an entry-level job, as the demand for entry-level jobs has increased with the number of graduates going up. In the past, companies were willing to train graduates. However, now that there has been a shift and employers have the upper hand, there's no longer an incentive to train graduates, as they can hire someone who already has the relevant experience and training, therefore costing the company less money in the long run. During my graduate job hunt, I have noticed that there has been a massive problem with job postings, and that's something we're going to touch on now. If you've been applying to hundreds of jobs and getting no responses, not even an acknowledgement of your application, I'm going to explain why. There is a real problem with job postings. There are actually a lot of fake job postings, and the reason companies do this is to appear to their shareholders as if the company is growing and they're hiring more people, when in reality they're not. And of course, the job boards are in on this because they get money from the companies who post their job ads on the site. The amount of ghosting that companies are doing during the hiring process is out of control. Also, many job board sites fail to take down company ads when the position has been filled, and that leads to lots of candidates applying and then never getting a response. Companies also ghost candidates because in reality not many jobs are secured through applying online through a job ad. A lot of positions in companies are filled through networking. You know the famous phrase, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and that couldn't be more relevant in 2025. And this has been a hard adjustment for young people who are used to the meritocracy in school, where it was about your ability and not your connections, but sadly the real world isn't like that. So you might be ghosted from the initial application, or maybe you might be asked for an interview, and then after the interview you are ghosted. That's exactly what happened to me on 3 separate occasions. I had an interview, it looked really promising, and then they said they would get back to me with an answer if I was through to the next stage or not, and I never heard anything back. Now, unfortunately, this is very common, as many companies have an internal candidate lined up and just go through the hiring process to tick the legal requirements in order to be able to then hire the internal candidate. So if you're receiving a rejection email, that's actually better than a lot of other people who are applying for jobs and not even receiving a rejection email, just straight silence. Now, if you even manage to get selected for an interview, hiring processes have become very problematic in recent years. Companies are known for setting candidates complex tasks, even for the most basic jobs. And these tasks require many hours which are unpaid, and the company often uses the work produced by candidates during these tasks to their own advantage and to make them money, all whilst they reject the candidate or ghost them. Shockingly, in 2025, most job listings still don't put the salary, so you have to apply and go through a complex hiring process without even knowing how much the salary is going to be. And whilst inflation and the cost of living has gone up, sadly salaries are still insultingly low. We're also suffering from a radically dehumanized hiring process, and that is also harming candidates. So for example, many companies don't even have a human looking at the CVs during the initial hiring stage. It's all done by computer, by AI, and you might be a great candidate with a lot of experience, but if you don't have a CV that is made for AI, you are going to be rejected immediately without a human having even considered your application. And in the last year, we have seen many companies increasingly use AI to conduct the first level of interviews. This is particularly relevant in the technology and the finance industry, where it has become commonplace for candidates to have an interview with AI. So it's not a human asking you the questions, you are sat there with the technology that asks you the questions automatically, and your answers are recorded. Companies have adopted this AI technology to cope with the thousands and thousands of job applications they receive for one job posting. Recruiters and hiring managers are out of their depth because there are just so many people applying for the same job. And unfortunately, the hiring process has become about being good at AI interviews and making a CV that's made for robots, rather than about your strengths, your knowledge, your experience, and your qualities as a human. So the reality of the job market looks pretty grim. And this has only been exacerbated by COVID-19. During the pandemic, many companies obviously had to stop hiring, and that has had a massive impact. COVID, combined with increasing global conflict across the world, has pushed inflation rates up, and therefore businesses can't afford to hire as many candidates anymore. This period of economic downturn that we're in has also led to many redundancies, and that's further decreased the number of vacancies available in companies. It's therefore safe to say that we are in what's called a loose labour market at the moment, meaning that there are far too many candidates for the number of positions available, and therefore companies are in a position of power because there is no incentive for them to offer competitive pay or good work benefits or even good working conditions, because workers are easily replaceable. And if we compare this with our parents' era, they were in what was known as a tight labour market. There were way more jobs compared to the number of candidates, and therefore it was easier to stand out, it was easier to get an interview and ultimately get a good paid job. And as I said earlier, degrees were also greatly valued by companies back then, unlike now. A steady decline of job vacancies over the past years has led to a lot of job instability. People are actually scared to leave their jobs, people are scared to job hop because it's not easy to find another job anymore, and this uncertainty is also exacerbating the problem regarding the lack of jobs. The reality is that we are currently experiencing what is known as the death of the 9-to-5. The idea of having a traditional stable job, one person for one job, is gone. Those days are over. 40 years ago, people would work for a company, they would work their way up, they would be highly respected by their employers, and they would stay loyal to the company, who rewarded them with pay rises and good company benefits. But unfortunately, with the rise of unemployment and companies being able to hire candidates that already have ample, if not too much experience for the job role, has led to workers' skills becoming devalued. We're even seeing that many 9-to-5 jobs are actually exploitative. Companies are offering so-called promotions, and employees are expected to take on more responsibility and work more hours, but for no pay rise. Worryingly, this seems to be becoming ever more commonplace. With such low salaries being offered and no real prospect of increasing your salary dramatically over time, this has led to many people already working multiple jobs and now having to turn to entrepreneurship in order to survive. And in my opinion, this is only going to become more people's realities as people build businesses and try to support themselves because their 9-to-5 job just isn't providing the security that it once did. So if you've been struggling to find a job, I just would like to give you some advice because I've been through the same thing and I know how tough and depressing it can be. The first thing to note is that you're not alone. This is a problem with society and the way the economy has gone. And it's just unfortunate that we're in a period of economic downturn that's had a massive impact on young people. But we also have an outdated education system, and that's definitely something that needs to change as well. Something I would recommend is trying not to compare yourself to others. Maybe your friends and family around you are all in good jobs and you feel like you're the only one that isn't. Maybe you feel like a failure, but you're definitely not. If you've tried and tried and tried and you have not been able to get a job, then that's not your fault. You have been trying. I also really like the quote, "Rejections are just redirections." So any job that you get rejected for wasn't actually for you in the first place. That wasn't what you were meant to be doing, and you will find another path more suited to you. And although although you'll be spending a lot of time applying for jobs, any free time that you do have, try to enjoy that guilt-free, because you're not supposed to be applying for a job from 6 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. at night. It's just not realistic, and that's going to lead to burnout. So I would highly recommend trying to learn other skills during your free time. Maybe there's a hobby that you've always wanted to take up, or maybe you could use your free time to look into that business that you've always wanted to start. Finally, I'm going to give you some actionable steps that you can take away from this video if you are a job seeker, a recent graduate, or someone who's just left school. If you're thinking about doing a degree that you have to pay for, I would strongly advise against doing that. I would instead try to look for apprenticeships or degree apprenticeships where the employer is paying you to get a qualification, all whilst you're gaining experience in the real workplace, as that's what employers are now looking for. They're looking for real life work experience right from day one. If you're a graduate that has already graduated from a traditional degree, I would definitely look into grad schemes, which are designed to build your skills and your experience. So the long-term solution to this broken education system and job market crisis is to try to control your own path. And what I mean by that is building your own businesses that you are in control of and that you can then grow and make a good amount of money from, and then eventually leave the trap of the 9-to-5 job. Obviously, that's not realistic for everyone. It's easier said than done, but you can always give it a go and try. You never know what might happen. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and let me know in the comments how your job hunt is going, any bad or good experiences you've had with your job search, and don't forget to let me know any videos you would like to see in the future.